Welcome back to Time-Tested Mastery Life Lesson Sell. Today I want to talk about something every real estate agent, salesperson, entrepreneur, and leader needs to understand. The best professionals do not just create more marketing content, they amplify their experience. That is a big difference. Right now, a lot of good people are exhausted. They're trying to keep up with everything. Post more, record more, comment more, chase more, email more, text more, be on every platform, show up everywhere, stay visible, stay relevant, stay in the algorithm. And there is nothing wrong with activity, but activity and productivity are not the same thing. You can be busy and still not be building authority. You can be posting every day and still not be saying anything that matters. You can be visible and still not be trusted. And that is a trap. Most professionals mistake motion for progress. But in sales, leadership, real estate, and business, the goal is not just to be seen. The goal is to be useful. The goal is to be trusted. The goal is to help people think more clearly, make better decisions, and move forward with more confidence. That does not happen because you create noise. You share wisdom in a way that other people can use. And that is what this episode is about. Your content should not become another full-time job. Your content should leverage the work you are already doing. Every conversation you have, every client question, every objection, every negotiation, every listing appointment, every buyer consultation, every leadership challenge, every mistake, every lesson, every market shift, all of that is raw material. The problem is most people do not stop long enough to capture it. They answer the question, they solve a problem, they get through the appointment, they put out the fire, then they move on to the next thing. And I get it, that is real life. But the professional who wants to build long-term authority has to pause and ask, what just happened here? What did this teach me? What did the client misunderstand? What fear was underneath that objection? What language helped create clarity? What question opened the door? What market lesson just showed up in real time? What principle is hiding inside this experience? That is where the real content lives. Not in copying the latest trend, not in pretending to be a motivational influencer, not in forcing yourself to say something just because the calendar says you need a post today. The real content lives inside your work. It lives inside your conversations. It lives inside the questions your clients are already asking. It lives inside the tension between what people want to believe and what the market is actually telling them. That's where your wisdom comes from. And wisdom beats noise every time. Let me give you a simple real estate example. A seller says, we want to price high because we can always come down later. Every agent has heard some version of that. Now, the average agent answers the question and moves on. They might say, well, you do not want to overprice because you could sit on the market. Now, that may be true, but then the moment is gone. The professional studies the moment because that one seller comment is not just a pricing objection. It is a lesson. It could be a blog post. It could be a podcast episode. It could be a social media post. It is an improved listing presentation dialogue. It is a better way to explain strategy to the next seller. That one conversation can become 4 or 5 different assets. You could write a blog post called Why Testing the Market Can Cost Sellers Their Best Buyers. You could record a podcast episode on how sellers sometimes confuse hope with a strategy. You could create a short social post about the difference between pricing with confidence and pricing with your ego. And you could update your listing presentation so the next time a seller says we can always come down later, you have clearer language. You might say something like this: Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you are right that we can reduce the price later. The risk is that the best attention usually comes early. The question is not just, can we come down? The better question is, what buyers will we miss while the market is teaching us what we should have known on day one? That's stronger. It's a lot clearer. That is useful. And it came from one real conversation. The same experience, but now you have 4 uses: better communication, more authority, more value. And that is what a lot of professionals are missing. They think they need more ideas. They don't. They need to pay closer attention to the ideas they are already being handed every single day. A buyer asks about interest rates. That's content. A seller asks if they should wait until spring. That's content. A client says, we do not want to overpay. There's content. A prospect says, we already know an agent. A team member keeps avoiding prospecting. For team leaders, that's content. A deal almost falls apart because of poor communication. That is content and a learning moment. A negotiation reveals the people do not need just facts. They need emotional safety. There's content. The marketplace is teaching us every single day, but you have to become a student of your own experience. That's how you become a master. Activity is doing things. Mastery is learning from what you do. Now let's talk about why this matters so much. Great communicators do not just collect information, they organize it for other people. There are plenty of people who know a lot. That's not enough. Your clients are already overwhelmed with information. They have Google, they have social media, they have market headlines, they have opinions from family and friends. They have half-truths from people who bought a house once and now think they understand the entire market. They have fear. They feel pressure. And sometimes they're confused. They do not need you to dump more information on them. They need you to organize the information around the decision they're trying to make. And that is the difference. A rate change means one thing to a first-time buyer and something completely different to a move-up buyer. Inventory means one thing to a seller with a lot of equity and something totally different to a seller who also has to buy. Days on market means one thing in one price range and something completely different in another. Price reductions tell a story. Buyer hesitation tells a story. Seller expectations tell a story. Your job is not just to know the data. Your job is to help interpret the story and then communicate it in a way that people can actually use. That is market wisdom. And market wisdom beats generic marketing. The market does not need another agent saying, call me for all your real estate needs. Boy, that message is tired. It is forgettable. It does not build trust. It does not demonstrate your judgment. It does not answer the questions people are actually carrying. The market needs professionals who can explain what is happening, why it matters, what risks people should watch for, and how to make better decisions. That is where authority is built. Not by trying to sound impressive, not by using industry language to prove you're smart, not by overwhelming people with charts and acronyms. Authority grows when people say, that helped me understand what I need to do next. Make that your standard. If your content helps people understand what to do next, it has value. If your content just reminds people you exist, it may create visibility, but it probably doesn't create the trust you're looking for. And trust is the real currency. Now, this applies beyond real estate. If you are in sales, your client conversations are teaching you what people fear, what they value, what they misunderstand, and what they need to hear before they can move forward. If you're an entrepreneur, your customer questions are showing you where the market is confused and where your message needs to be clearer. If you are a leader, your team's repeated struggles are showing you what needs to be trained, reinforced, simplified, or modeled. If you are a coach, consultant, speaker, or trainer, your best material is probably not sitting in a blank document. It is sitting inside the conversations you already had this week. The mistake is thinking content creation starts with, what should I post? That's the wrong starting point. The better question is, what did I learn this week that would help someone else? That mindset changes everything, because now you are not creating from pressure, you are creating from service. You're not performing, you're teaching. You're not trying to feed the algorithm, you're trying to feed clarity. And that is a much stronger place to work from. Here is a practical habit I want you to consider. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes and write down 3 things. Number 1, what happened today that taught me something? Number 2, who else would benefit from understanding that lesson? Who? Number 3, how can I turn that into something useful? That is it. Don't overcomplicate it. Do not turn it into a giant content strategy session. Just capture the lesson. Maybe it becomes a blog. Maybe it becomes a podcast. Maybe it becomes a 60-second video reel. Maybe it becomes an email to your database. Maybe it becomes a better sales script or dialogue. Maybe it becomes a training point for your team. Maybe it just becomes a sentence you use the next time a client asks the same question. That still counts. Because the goal is not to create more, the goal is to make every action expand its impact. That is a time-tested mastery principle. The goal is not to create more, the goal is to make every action expand its impact. That means every conversation should make you better. Every client question should sharpen your language. Every objection should deepen your understanding. Every transaction should improve your judgment. Every mistake should produce a lesson. Every lesson should become useful to someone else. That is how you build a business that lasts. Not by chasing constant noise, not by trying to become someone you are not by pretending to have all the answers. Instead, by paying attention, organizing your experience, and sharing what you are learning in a way that helps other people. That is how you become more than a salesperson. That is how you become a trusted advisor. That is how you become a leader. And that is how you become the person people turn to when the market gets confusing, when the decision feels heavy, and when trust matters. So here's your challenge for the week. Do not try to create 10 new things from scratch. Instead, look at the work you already did. Look at one client conversation, one objection, one question, one lesson, one moment where you had to explain something clearly. Then ask yourself, how can this experience help more people than just the person who was in the room? That's how you build leverage. That's how you will create amplification to your message. That is content with a purpose. And that is the difference between simply being active and becoming a person of value. Because the best professionals do not create more noise, they amplify their experience. They turn real conversations into wisdom. They turn wisdom into communication. They turn communication into trust. And trust is what builds a business that can stand the test of time. So thanks for listening to Time Tested Mastery Life Lessons Sell. Remember, the market does not need more noise. It needs your wisdom. And your experience properly captured and shared may be the exact wisdom someone else needs today.